the second century of photography. In a previous video, I covered first 100 years. Now it's time for me to cover the second 100 years. And in the first video, I skimmed over some inventions and some years. And I'm probably gonna do that in this video because I'm trying to cover like 100 years of history in one video, and I'm trying for it to not be like an hour video. So strap in and let's jump straight into the video, and we're gonna start at 1900, because in 1900 Kodak Brownie was introduced, which was basically first cheap camera. It was marketed as a cheap camera, and it would cost you around $1 at the time, which is now probably like 45 bucks or something, but still relatively cheap. How they managed to get it that cheap? It was just basically camera obscura with a lens on it. That's it, nothing complicated, but the price was cheap and it made photography more available to people. A year later, Kodak introduces 120 format, or rather indication 120, and the film came on spools. It had piece of paper in between pieces of film, so it wouldn't get overexposed while exchanging the film. 120 is a good format, high quality. Fewer pictures though, compared to regular small frame, but we still use 120 format till this day. And also in the same year, people literally thought that painting is dead because of photography. Like, chill the fuck out, dude. I know the photography was around for 100 years at that point, but still, it's like, I don't know, it's extremely funny to me. And by 1902, we had something that was called wire photography, sometimes also referred to as telephotography. It was developed by Arthur Korn, that invented a fax machine. Similar invention was introduced in 1907 by Edward Bellin, that invented Bellinograph, that allows you to send pictures through telephone lines. So you could basically send MMS through a cable in 1907. Same year, we also got Autochrome Lumiere, introduced by Lumiere brothers, that was first commercially available color process. And it was constructed out of different plates, and it was called mosaic screen plate. And it was basically like a 4-layer sandwich with black and white silver halidite emulsion on the bottom of it. And on top, you had 3 glass layers with potato starch mixed within them. So you had blue and violet layer, you had green layer, and you also had red, and the light passed through these layers onto the silver halidite, creating a colorful image. Do you think 1907 was a little bit early for color photography? Well, then this will blow your mind. In 1908, Kinacolor was introduced, which is, color movies technology. Although it used 2 different colors instead of 3 different colors, but it worked similarly. You had red or green filters on your camera, then you had black and white film where you recorded it, and then while projecting it, you were projecting it through red and green filters as well. And that would create a color picture. Although it wouldn't be like fully colored, it would be just like a flat palette, I guess. But even earlier, in 1902, there was a guy that invented a technique for motion picture films using 3-color technique, but unfortunately he died suddenly in 1903, so the technology didn't really went anywhere. But if we go even further than that, and we look at the date of the first colored picture, it's 1861, so it's even earlier than that. So now, 1907 as a first commercially available color process doesn't seem so early, does it? In 1912, Kodak introduced Kodak Best Pocket Camera, which was exactly what it described. It was foldable camera that was pocket-sized, so you could take it anywhere, take picture anywhere, and that was the point. One weird thing about it though is that it ran on 127 film, which is, I don't really understand that. For me, it's just an abomination, because it's in between 135 and 120, so it's between medium and small. So how the fuck would you define it? And why the hell the smallest one is 135, the medium one is 120, and the one in between them is 127? What the f? who named these things, but it doesn't matter because in 1913 we had first commercially available small frame camera made by Oskar Barnach and built for late Leica camera. In the same year, we also got panachromic films for motion picture, and panachromic films are basically black and white films that can see all spectrum of colors, can capture all of them, but in black and white. And it was available as a special order since 1917 and as a normal stock since 1922. And why would you need that? It's quite important because even if the image is black and white, it will look way, way better if you will have all the colors. And even more so, if you will have control over all the colors at once. Like, trust me, that's why your black and white picture don't look as good as other people's black and white pictures. Because other people's black and white pictures start as colored pictures. I'm probably gonna display that on screen how to what I mean, because you can do that in Lightroom easily. 1914, Kodak autographic film was introduced, which was a film with a little bit of space for you to leave a note on the picture, like who's on it, why you did that picture, maybe exposure, maybe some info, where, why, when, all of that stuff. In 1916, we've got first camera with the rangefinder, and the camera was of course Kodak 3A Autographic Special. And rangefinder is a thing that helps you with the focus. And in 1925, Leica popularized accessorized rangefinders, so you can just attach it to your camera if you needed it. And around that time, 1915 to 1920s, pictorialism started to slow down. And I wanted to pause for a little bit here and talk a little about pictorialism. Pictorialism was an art movement in photography, started in around 1885 and started slowing down in 1920s, and it kind of died out in 1940s. But it was a great art movement because it was focused not on the perfect representation or the perfect technique or the perfect picture, but rather creating picturesque images and using photography more as a artistic expression tool rather than just a technical one. So pictorialists were experimenting. Their pictures were often out of focus, they looked dreamy, they looked unreal, they sometimes looked like they were drawings, not pictures. And that was the point. Like, they didn't want to get that boring stuff, they wanted to do that artistic stuff. But just a brief mentioning, if you'd like me to make video on them, you can comment that down in the comments. And around when the pictorialism started dying out, we can say that the dynamic photography started gaining traction. Because photography started to really take off as there was more and more options for cameras and films on the market, and more people could buy themselves a camera. In 1926, Kodak, of course it was Kodak, I'm sorry for saying that name over and over, but they invented so much shit. So they introduced motion picture duplicating film for duplicates of negatives. Previously, they were using two cameras to kind of like copy the film. Yeah, that invention reduced the amounts of cameras filmmakers needed on the scene. And in the late 1920s and early 1930s, Group F64 was formed. And Group F64 was basically formed in opposition to pictorialism. So they saw pictorialism and they said, "Fuck you, I'm gonna do better." And that's what they did. That's what they tried to do. They tried to be as perfect as you can get with photography, with technical stuff. They had lots of photography figures, really good detailed pictures. One of the most famous pictures also come from that era. Of course, if you are into photography, you probably know these pictures. And if you don't, go check them out. Really good. One of them helped establish national parks in the United States. And he also got awesome detailed pictures from like 100 years ago of that. And yeah, they basically tried to take photography into the highest technical point they could get. They developed a lot of things like contrast and shit, but yeah. 100 likes under that video and I'm gonna do the video about the group F-64. I'm dressed differently, but I've got reasons. So I've decided to cut this video in a couple of parts, so don't click off yet. I'm just gonna add the link to the other parts somewhere in here, probably in the description as well, when I'm done, of course, with them. Because I recorded like an hour of me talking, so I'm trying to do like 10 minutes per video. Because after all, I'm covering like 100 years of history. But now when it's split like that, I wish I kind of added more stuff into it. But, well, it is what it is. I'm not gonna re-record that. So yeah, go find the second video. And thank you for joining me here. Subscribe if it's not out yet. Because if you do that, the subscribe button will do a cool animation. And also stay tuned for other parts. And I've already recorded it, so I'm gonna try to have it like out as fast as possible, because it was supposed to be one video, but because of y'all TikTok brain monkeys cannot pay attention for longer, I'm just gonna split that shit. And yeah, enjoy whatever the